This is one of the most important parts of your lesson that I have fallen short on many times. I get into the mode of teaching and completely forget to tell my students what we are learning, why, and how they will achieve this. Once I realized the omission, I immediately corrected myself. It is so powerful for students and to their learning. I started repeating it at least 3 times during my lesson. The learning intention and success criteria is a fancy phrase for what your students are learning and how they know it was learned. It may be referred to as the objective and goals, or what I like to use, WALT, W-A-L-T, the We Are Learning To statement. The learning intention is 1 or 2 sentences that identifies what the student is learning that day in class. It is written in kid-friendly language so that it is easily understood. It's a much clearer version of the state standard that is broken down into smaller chunks for each day or days of learning. The second part is the success criteria. These statements verbalize how the students will know they are successful or how they know they have achieved this part of the objective. They state all of the steps, concepts, or skills the student should exhibit or perform independently without teacher assistance. Simply put, the learning intention is separating the state standard into single parts and rewriting them so that your grade level student can understand them. The success criteria is clearly identifying every piece of knowledge needed to master the objective. It can also be used as your evaluation tool and turned into an informal checklist to indicate what was learned on a daily basis. Here's an example. Common Core State Standard for Grade 5 ELA number 3.5 states, compare and contrast 2 or more characters, settings, or events in a story or drama, drawing on specific details in the text. Of course, you are not going to write this on your board. More importantly, we have to break this down into smaller, more digestible parts. The students are not going to learn this standard all in one day. It will be over the course of a few weeks or a month, and then you'll probably revisit it later in the year. So my version for the first 3 days could be something like this. We are learning to compare 2 or more characters. You see how I just took the first part of that standard, not all of it. Then my success criteria states, you are successful when you, 1, identify various character traits. So you would teach lessons on the many character traits and what they mean. My second success criteria states you are successful when you identify character motivation. And the last one is you are successful when you explain how motivation influenced the story. Maybe the next 3 days, my learning intention and success criteria would state we are learning to contrast 2 or more characters. So now I take that little piece of the standard. See the difference? So the first 3 days we compare the characters, the next 3 days we contrast the characters. And then maybe once we get there, they will compare and contrast all at once. The success criteria would state you are successful when you describe how 2 characters are different in attitude, motivation, and traits, and other areas such as appearance and background. Then, throughout the unit, I would continue with the rest of the standard to teach setting and events. If you work with primary students, the statements will be easier to craft, and if you can collaborate across grade bands to write them, you will see the progression of the same skills throughout the 3-year span. If you can work on mastering this tool, it will be of great benefit to your students. Once you begin to craft them, it will become easier. If necessary, use ChatGPT to get you started. It's a great way to get your mind in the flow. Once you have generated a response, you can then go back and revise and edit them appropriately. Finally, I would write it on the left side of my whiteboard, and I wrote them on large post-it paper, so after the unit, I could transfer it to one of my walls as a reference. If I had the chance, I would also laminate them so I'd have them ready for the next year. Of course, I created the documents on my smartboard too. I know it sounds like too much, but it irked my nerves to hear kids say, "What are we learning? I don't know what we're doing." All I would have to do was point and have them read it aloud for everyone. I would give them that look of, "You must be really out of space somewhere because it's all over this room." And when the superintendent or principal or parents made an impromptu visit, it was clearly evident of the learning that was occurring in my class. Thank you for listening.